Take a moment right here, feeling like it's out gear. Driving towards the sun with a rose and a gun. Feel the wind in my hair, going nowhere I swear. Like an outlaw on the run, dangerous but it's so fun. Running, running, no, hold on, don't let go. Running, running, no, keep running.
Hey, what's up, Rangers? Daddy Louie here. If you are unfamiliar with who I am a member of the Circle of Nerds. You can find my content on YouTube, youtube.com/Circle of Nerds. I do have some Power Ranger videos, painting videos. I do a lot of game reviews and things like that, so definitely go and check that out. You can find us on social media at Circle of Nerds as well. But as always, I thank Renegade for having me on the stream today. Continuing with our Ranger Ally pack, today we are going to be painting the Phantom Ranger. Now, the Phantom Ranger is, he's kind of a more simple Ranger, I guess you could say, in that he just has a couple of colors. He's black mostly, and he has some silver bits on his uniform as well, a couple of tiny red bits. We're going to use some art rather than the show because it does add a little bit more color, and I'll show you that when we go down to the table here. So we're going to use, like I said, some of his art for inspiration. You can see here he's mostly black, and he does have some silver bits on him. But then when we look at a couple of his cards, you can see part of his visor and stuff here is yellow. So we're gonna go with that art rather than the TV show. He was on the TV show. I believe he was on Turbo, and then he later showed up on Space. And if I'm looking at, hold on, I'm trying to pull up my picture. If I look up, I found this picture on my phone, and you can see it's just all black and some silver bits, and that's it. So we're going to change it up a little bit. We're going to use a lot of grays and then do washes on that, and then highlight the grays to kind of just give it some more pop. That's the plan anyway, and because he is a simpler character to paint, if we finish early, I left some highlighting on Doggy Kruger. I didn't finish him just in case we had some extra time. So his blaster is going to be silver. He's going to have some silver bits on him, and that's really about it. The rest of it's going to be pretty much black. So for grays and stuff like that, I basically just pulled out all of the grays I have. So for his jumpsuit, behind the armor pieces, I'm going to try and use Eshin Gray. It's a darker gray, close to black, but not really. But then we're going to use German Gray for the actual armor bit. And then when we throw the wash on it, it's going to darken all that up. And then we can use these to highlight back up. We're going to use Nuln Oil, a lot of Nuln Oil. Lead Belcher for our silver bits. For our yellow bits, Everland Sunset. And for our reds, we're going to use the trifecta of Mephiston Red, Evil Sun Scarlet, and Wild Rider Red. And we're going to use those so that we can create like a light effect, because looking at his, not really on that art, but if you look here, like on the center of his chest piece, it looks like a light, like it's flashing, and so that's the effect that we're going to go for. Anyway, as always, I am not a pro painter. I am just an intermediate painter trying to show you beginner painters how to improve. Just get painting. That's the number one goal here. Don't wait. Don't delay on your painting. So we want you to get painting as quickly as possible because it's fun and everybody can do it. So so we're gonna start with Eshin Gray. We're gonna put that all over. And I'm actually low on some of these paints, so this is going to be interesting. Also, I went back and I watched last week's stream, and it looked like my microphone was cutting out. I don't know why. It is a new microphone, so please bear with me. I will do my best to keep my face in front of the microphone as much as possible. But if at any time, something happens, just let me know in the comments. I definitely need to get more Eshin Gray when I go to the store again. This is kind of low. We're going to use a large brush for this because it's going to be a pretty big base coat, and we're not going to be careful at all. We just want the whole thing to be gray. Also, I forgot to mention that I did, as always, wash this model with soap and water and a little toothbrush, and then once he was dry, I primed him with GW's Wraithbone. And you could, if you wanted to, do this, paint him differently than I'm painting him now. You could prime him in black, and that would be perfectly acceptable. It actually might make the painting process quicker. But because I wanted to paint him primarily gray and not black, I really wanted to go this route instead. So that's why I went with white. Or Wraithbone. It's kind of like an off-white color, but it's close enough to white. Hope everybody had an excellent weekend, wherever you are in the world. It was hot as heck in New England, so that was fun, I guess. Like crazy hot, holy moly. I can't remember if I told you guys on stream last week, but I ended up borrowing a power washer and power washing the house. That was a learning experience for sure. Power washing is not as much fun as you would think it is. So right now I'm just spreading the gray all over the uniform. I'm just trying to get the gray on the jumpsuit underneath, mostly this Eshin Gray, because this is a lighter gray than the German gray. Not by much, but it is a little lighter. And that will help us to pick out details when we get to that part. For the armor bits, or the bits that appear to be armor-esque on his uniform, those we're going to paint with that German gray to make them appear darker. And then, like I said, once we put the wash on it, the whole entire thing will get darker. From a distance, it will look black. When you look right up on it, it'll look it'll look gray, but it'll look like, black with shadows. So he basically looks, in the pictures and in the art that I've seen, he looks like he's got like almost like a military flight suit underneath on his close to his skin, and then he's got these armor plates and stuff that go on it. So I'm not being careful at all. Like I said, I'm just getting paint where I want paint to go. Alright, I think that every place that is jumpsuit is covered with this Eshin Gray. So we're going to let that dry for a second, clean our brush. Probably need to get a different brush for the next part. Now we're going to go over the armor pieces that we want to be darker. Don't need that brush anymore. Alright, so the next part I'm going to use a number 1 brush, and we're going to get our model color, Vallejo model color German Gray. And really it is just like 1 shade darker than Eshin Gray. Sorry, I was letting my friend know that the stream had started because they said they went on to watch. All right. Can you see the darkness difference there? Yeah, you kind of can on the picture there. I actually think I might adjust my lights here, make them a little brighter. I might white out on the screen, but there we go. It's better. Hey, there she is. I got nervous when no one said anything in the chat. It's okay if that original gray that you put on there is still a little wet. This gray will just kind of combine with it. And they're so similar in color that it's really not going to affect the the tone that you're going for. And we did this same effect when we painted Doggy Kruger, because his jumpsuit is also black, but we used this German gray as a black substitute, and it worked out really well. So like I said, I know that on the TV shows, the Phantom Ranger was not in very many episodes. He wasn't a long-term character like, the other Rangers are. I think he was only in like 7 episodes or so of I think it was Turbo. Pretty sure it was Turbo. He was on Turbo for like 7 episodes, and then on Space for like 3 episodes. But as far as the comics, I'm not sure how often he has appeared in the comics, if at all. There was a point in time where I was really up and up on the comics. And then stinking COVID has stopped my comic reading pretty much completely. And even now that stores are opening back up, like, I really do need to go and check out some comics, but I feel like I'm so far behind that I've kind of almost lost interest, which sucks. Like I said, if you're a real novice painter and you want to paint this guy, you could not at all do what I'm doing. Instead, just get yourself some black primer and prime in black, and maybe do some dry brush of a dark gray just to give him some highlights, and pick out the silver bits and call them done. This is when you talk about models that have primarily black colors, what I'm doing now is definitely the long and detailed way of doing it. You do not have to do it like this. But I'm hoping you can see the difference in grays between his jumpsuit and those armor bits that I just painted. Because that's really what we're going for here. So both his belts, he does have 2 belts. One is right here. This one's silver, and then this belt is also silver. and but the belt loops are gray. And then I believe all of this is all armor bits as well. So we're going to paint that in that dark gray also. The straps around this armor thing are silver, so we're going to leave those alone. If you get some gray on it, it's really okay because you're going to go over it with silver in a minute anyway. And of course, you're free to paint him any color you want. I personally like painting stuff based strictly off the box art, but I've seen some really cool interpretations with different stuff. He's got some really cool pauldrons, shoulder pads. I hope this isn't like super boring because we're just using all dark colors. I promise the end result will be worth it. You don't have to be super careful when you are putting this different type of gray on the model. Because once you put the wash and stuff on there, stuff will kind of blend together, and we're gonna have to highlight it again anyway. So I'm being careful, but I'm not being like crazy careful, if that makes sense. All right, we're looking pretty good there. His straps on his armor and stuff need to be this gray color as well, so we'll have to go back and get all that. But also want to make sure that we get these little bits here. Alternatively, what you could do, if you wanted this effect but you wanted it to be quicker, is same steps in the beginning, but instead of using the Eshin Gray, you could take and use a black contrast paint. Black contrast paint would work really, really well to create shadows and stuff for you. And then once you get those shadows on, then you can go back with this German Gray and pick out the armor bits. And that would pretty much put you at the same step that we're at now. The reason that I chose to do it this way was because, contrast paints take forever to dry. And who wants to watch paint dry? Is it possible in the future to get a set of the Team Power Rangers Supersonic? Oh, that would be very cool. That's definitely a Renegade question. All right, so we're almost there. He's got a little armor plate on his glove, so I made sure I painted that as well. And if you notice, I'm leaving the helmet for last. It's just to make it easier for me to rest my hand on there. So like I said in the beginning, we're going to take a couple liberties just so that the model isn't, all black and a little bit of silver. So all of the armor bits now are painted with the darker German gray, and we'll do the helmet last. Yeah, I'm curious to hear from the rest of the chat. What characters are you looking for next? Obviously, we have the Psycho Rangers coming out soon. So what would you like to see after that? All right, so that's the two grays. You can kind of see it better there on the back. Oh, I did say we were going to paint those straps. Let's paint those straps real quick. There, now that the strap is painted, you can kind of see that there's a nice difference in the grays. Got a lot of shadows going on here. Let me blast this light too. There we go. I'm all whitewashed in the face there, but now you can see without the shadows, hopefully. Has anyone gotten to play with the Phantom Ranger in-game yet? Curious to know how he plays. Curious what your experiences are with him. Alright, all our straps are painted, and we will move on to the silver bits. For the silver, we're going to use lead belcher. I almost put it on my wet palette. I'm not going to do that.
Now which way do we go is the question to ask. There are so many choices that it's hard not to look past. What is real and what is fake, and the risk we have to take. Will we know?
Alright, let's start with the gun, or the blaster. Because it's pretty much all silver. So that's pretty easy.
We can no longer hold on to what only makes us hurt. We cannot sink into the dark. The vertigo is getting sharp. There's something greater than ourselves that we must reach for. Into the infinite that we must reach. Into the infinite that we must reach. Into the infinite that we must reach. Into the infinite.
Just be careful when you get around the hand. I'm actually going to pull it close to my face for just a second. Alright, that looks good. Alright, now like I said, there's a few other silver bits on him. He has 2 belts, so we're going to get those as silver as well. And the second belt as well is silver. I don't know if it's actually a belt. It's probably just a piece of armor of some kind, but... Gotta get really close now for these little bits.
Make sure everything is alright. I wanna see through the heart that bears it all. Take it apart, throw it away, put it back together again.
Sorry, I'm not talking much and hyper focused for some reason. Straps are not easy to get to underneath this arm, so you just want to be careful, take your time. I haven't seen the back of him, so we're going to take some liberties and paint a few things that I think might be silver. Mostly just to break up the monotony of the gray. All right, that is. He's got these pipes that come up from his. I don't know what this is, but part of his armor, and they go into his neck. Make sure you paint those silver as well, if you are following along with me. All right, so let's look at our little reference picture. Yeah, you can see the kind of the gray pipes right there, or the silver pipes, and then the straps are silver. This little comm box in the center is silver, and on this one you can see this yellow really well. Maybe it's gold. I don't know. What do you think? You think we should paint it yellow or paint it gold? I could do like a really bright gold. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let's see. Here we can be a little messy again, because we're going to paint the visor black in a second. All right, there's our silver. I don't know if I should do yellow or do gold. Let's do gold. We're going to use Liberator gold. It's more of a yellow gold. Actually, it's more of a silver gold, but I think it'll look nice. And maybe I'm wrong. Let's see. Oh, it's really, really watery. Give me a second to shake it up. I need like a paint shaking machine. It shakes all my paints out for me. The coughing in that song was throwing me off. This paint is kind of thin, so we're probably going to have to do 2 coats. Just so you know. Yeah, I'm glad we did that instead of going with the yellow. The other bit on here on the art that has yellow is these little vents in the mouth part of the mask. So we're gonna paint those silver or gold as well. That looks great. All right, while we let that dry, we're going to grab our red. And we're going to start with our darkest red, which is Mephiston red. We'll go back to the other reds once the shading is dry. And we're just going to use those to make the red parts look like they're illuminating. You'll see what I mean when we get to that part. For this, I want a smaller brush. So we're going to go back to, well, not back to. This is the first time, actually, we're using our 0. And if you remember on my last stream, last week, I said that I hadn't cleaned my brushes, so they couldn't keep a tip. So I made sure I cleaned my brushes, and they so far are really working much better. Like a hair or something in this brush. There we go. reference picture real quick on the one on my phone. So the only parts that are red are the thing in the chest and the thing in the helmet. Man, I kind of wish the thing in the belt was red too, but it is not on any of the pictures. So I don't want to screw up my screen accuracy here. So we'll leave that belt part alone. But look how, it's so nice. I just want to paint it red. So that's it, just that little dot there in the center. And then up here. And we're going to have to be careful with this slot here in the helmet because it's really deep. And when we put the wash on the miniature, you know what? This thing on the back might be red too. Again, I couldn't find a picture of his back, so we're going to take some liberties. Seems like it would be red. There we go. And the last thing that we need to do before shading, which is something we could wait and do after the shade, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it now, is the visor, which we're just going to do straight black. So we're going to use Vallejo Model Color Black for that. It really does have a Daft... You're right, I didn't notice that. It does have a Daft Punk look to it, his helmet. All right, and that's all she wrote. So, if you want to be done, you can stop right there. He is ready for the table. But, you know, that's not what we do. So, we are going to put some wash on this guy. And then we're going to use our grays and stuff to do our best to make the armor pop. I think he looks great. It's a really, really cool model. I love the pose. So I'm excited to see how this looks. So the wash that we're going to use is Nuln Oil. And we're going to cover the entire thing. I thought about not covering the yellow, but I'm just going to go ahead and cover it. So since we're going to be covering the whole model, I'm just going to use a large... I actually use this brush for dry brushing most of the time. But it's just to get the wash on the model faster. Actually, this brush was a terrible choice. Now, because the Ranger normally is normally just all black, we decided to use grays instead so that we could highlight, because black is the darkest color. So, you know, how do you highlight the darkest color and create shadows? Because shadows are black and gray. So you create the shadows and the highlights by using gray as your base, darkening it with the shade, because this wash is going to darken all of that gray to give it more of a black appeal, or black appearance, I should say. And then when we highlight with the grays, it will look like light reflecting, which is exactly what we want. And just make sure that your wash doesn't pool in any spots that you don't want it to. For this model, it's not going to be as big of a deal because we want all of the recesses to be black because his armor is black. But on other models, you're not going to want it to pool as much. So I'm just going through and blotting out some of the places I put too much. Cool. Alright, so now we just gotta let that dry. Take a few minutes to dry. And clean our brushes. And the first thing that we're probably going to do is highlight the silver. Even though that was one of the last colors that we did, the reason that I'm going to highlight the silver is in case we make a mistake while highlighting the silver, we can cover our mistakes while highlighting the gray. Plus, the gray is going to take the longest. So we're actually going to highlight the silver, and then we'll do the red and gold, and then we'll do the grays last. So he's going to take like I say, he's going to take a few minutes to dry. Let's remind everybody, in case you are new to the stream, let's see what we've painted so far on stream. So last week's stream, we painted Doggy Kruger. This is as far as we got, which was pretty far. I would say he's like 95% complete. We just got to highlight some more of the blues. And we kind of did that with his straps already, but his gauntlets here probably need some highlight, and his shin pads. But other than that, he's pretty good. Like I said, about 95% done. The week before that, we did Tommy, Turbo Tommy. And he's awesome. I love how he turned out. He's pretty much completely done. There's a couple minor highlights that I would probably do to him, but really not much. He's pretty... If the other guy, if Doggy Kruger is 95% complete, then this guy is 99% complete. And then week 1 we did White Ranger Tommy, and he is 100% complete. The only other thing that you could do to this model, if you wanted to, was use the Liberator Gold, which was the really white gold that we used on the Phantom Ranger, and you could highlight this gold with that gold. It really just depends how what tone, I guess, you want the gold to be. You can see it's kind of more of an orangey gold, but if we just very lightly highlight with this Liberator Gold, it becomes even more shiny. Right, so you could do this all over if you wanted to. I had another White Ranger that I had completed before that I used the Liberator Gold on instead of the Retributor Armor Gold, which is what this is, and that's why we decided to go with this route, just to show a difference between the two. Yeah, so those are the things we've painted on our past streams. They're all up on YouTube, I believe, on Renegade's YouTube, if you want to go and check those out. I highly encourage you to, especially the Doggy Kruger one, because I show you a different way of getting the highlights and stuff. We use some dry brushing techniques as opposed to just regular highlighting. So definitely go and check out Renegade's YouTube page in order to check that out. While we're waiting on this guy to dry, does anybody have any questions? Any painting tips? Anything you'd like to see in future episodes of the show? I would love to hear your ideas. Look how cool he looks, man. That's just such a cool model. And you can really see as that shade starts to dry, you're really starting to see the difference in those two grays. It's gonna look really good. There's some pooling here we want to avoid. So let's. So next week we have to decide what we want to paint. We have left the Zeo Gold Ranger, Magna Defender, and Ninjor. Ninjor I'd like to leave for last, because he's my favorite in that pack, and he's going to be a lot of fun to paint. So maybe we could do either the Gold Ranger or Magna Defender. It's whatever you guys would like to see next. Just let me know. You can let me know in the comments here. Last week we had the Shadow Ranger, or the Phantom Ranger is what got voted on. So that's why we're painting him today. Just another minute or two. The silver is starting to dry. That's another reason we're going to do silver first. It's more prominent. It's more, it's not a recessed color, so it's going to be easier to paint, even if things are still a little wet. I don't know if that's supposed to be red on the back. If anybody saw the episodes that he was in, let me know. I did Google it, and nothing came up, so that's why we're making some assumptions here, which is all right. When are we gonna get the Daddy Louie dancing emoji for the chat? We definitely need that. I need to find somebody that can make one. That would be awesome. I think it was Jay Quellen that mentioned it last week. I think it would be awesome. I think it'd be hilarious. Because every once in a while I'll catch myself beeping and bopping to the music. Alright, so for our highlighting of the silver, I think we're going to go back to Lead Belcher just for some quick highlights, and then we may use Stormhost Silver as an extreme highlight. We'll see how we're looking with some Lead Belcher. You want to make sure that you keep the shades in the recessed areas. Yeah, I think that's probably enough. I don't think we need to go brighter than that. Alright, so that's the yellow done. That was real quick. Sorry I didn't say anything while I was doing it. I was trying to figure out which parts I wanted highlighted. I didn't want to like make the belt too silvery, because the way his arm is raised and down, actually, it's going to create some shadows on the side. So I didn't want to do too silver. I think it's just the right amount. If we were to do Stormhost, Let's do a tiny bit. This is just going to be extreme highlighting. It's really chunky. Metallics are always the hardest to mix, in my opinion. I'm good with that. Okay. So now the reds. So the red on the helmet, we're just going to do... We're going to leave it for now. The red on the front and the back, we're going to basically just go right over what we did earlier with the same color. See, right now I'd be like, all right, everybody, spam the Daddy Louie dance emoji, and everybody would just start dancing. It'd be awesome. Okay, so now we're going to go to, see, what's the next color in the red trio? Evil Sun Scarlet. You don't need a lot of this paint. Basically, the goal here, okay, is you have a red circle, and it's going to be hard to show you on... I'll actually just show you on my wet palette. Because it's going to be hard to show you on the model because it's so small. So you've got your red here, right? This is your darkest red. And you want to make a circle. Now, the next step is you want to take your lighter red and you want to fill the same circle, but just leave a little bit of the original color on the outside. Okay. It's hard that you guys can't even see that. There. And then you keep doing that. So then the next circle on the inside of that would be a lighter color. Lighter. And then the very, very center, you just do like a little tiny white dot, basically. And it will look like that thing that you're painting is illuminated. I'll try and see if it'll be visible on the camera. But I just wanted to show you a visual representation of what I'm talking about. Just making sure that I don't completely cover the original red. And we're gonna use that same red, the evil Sun Scarlet. Evil, is that what it's called? Evil Sun Scarlet. For the helmet slot as well. You just want to make sure there's not very much paint on your brush, and you want to make sure that the tip is really sharp, because you want to try and avoid getting on the gold if you can. But we still haven't highlighted that, so it's okay. There you go. And then we're going to go to Wild Rider Red. It's almost like an orange. And again, we're avoiding it's probably really hard to see, but there are 3 layers of reds there. I actually got red on the silver, which is cool. Not really. Not what I wanted to do, but that's okay. If you screw up, you can go back to your original color, which in this case is Lead Belcher, and fix it. All right, so now if you want, which I do, you can go even more of an extreme highlight, and you can get orange. So we're going to use Fire Dragon Bright, which is it's orange. So for this, we're going to have to be very, very minimal, like a microscopic dot. And that's it. And your red is highlighted. The visor thing, we're going to leave that just solid red, because it's solid red on his visor on the art. So. And because it is so small, it is hard to see, but actually let me zoom in here. There you go. See how it kind of looks like it's lighting up? And of course, from far away, you can't even tell. But up close, I can tell, and I like it. So that's all that matters. All right, so now we're going to do the Liberator Gold. I think I need some more because mine dried out. just to highlight, and then we move on to the grays, which is it's going to be fun, I promise. So that's the gold. Not much to it, but I did get some gold on the black visor, so we're going to have to clean that up real quick before we move on, because it's going to drive me nuts. And this brush is just, it's not cooperating. And I did clean it, but you can see how the bristles are starting to split. So this brush might be at the end of its life. So let's switch brushes. What were we doing? Oh yes, we are going to fix that visor really quick. Take 2 minutes. Okay, cool. So now we're going to move on to the grays. So we used Eshin Gray for the jumpsuit, and we used German Gray for the armor bits. So now we're going to level up every color up one shade, I guess you could say. So the Eshin Gray is a lighter color than the German Gray. So the Eshin Gray is what we're going to use to highlight the German Gray. And then for the German Gray, we are going to use Dawnstone. I'm sorry, for the Eshin Gray, we're going to use Dawnstone to highlight. So we're going to do the under part first. The jumpsuit. I don't know why I couldn't think of the word. So Dawnstone is a lighter color than Eshin Gray. Not by a lot. Or should we use Admin Gray? So this is kind of the trifecta, if you will. Eshin Gray, Dawnstone, and Admin. I think I'm going to use Admin. I don't have a lot left, so let's see how long I can get it to stretch. Again, this is to do the jumpsuit. Oh, that might be really light. So I'm just watering it down a little bit. And so you just want to pick out the parts that are raised. There's not a ton of them, but there are some. So I'm just being very gentle. And I'm trying to find raised parts of... There's a lot on the back. I'm just trying to look on the front. Raised parts on the front of the uniform that I want to highlight. Sometimes you just have to create your own raised edges, if you will. On real flat surfaces, sometimes you just want to put a highlight somewhere where there's not something raised, and that's okay. You can just make little streaks. Okay. Let's move over to the back. So you might be thinking to yourself, man, this is a really obnoxious step, and it takes an intense amount of patience and, yeah, mostly just patience. And you can totally skip this step. You do not have to do this at all. This is just, really, it's the way that you're going to be able to make gray appear black, and how you're going to be able to give black dimension. Because the color black itself does not have dimension. It's black. There's nothing else to it. There are no shades of black, or anything like that. So using these different shades of gray and using this highlighting that I'm doing here, it allows you to make gray appear more black. So I don't know if you can tell by looking at it. Probably not. But the only thing that we've used black on is the visor. Everything else has been different forms of gray. So we're not going to do any more extreme highlights on the jumpsuit. We put some lines back here on the back of the legs, and the back of the arms, up here in the crotch area, over here on the hands and stuff, just where the folds of the uniform are. Now we want to highlight the German gray, and we're going to do that by going back to the Eschen gray. So same technique, but obviously there's more to highlight here, right? So we want to highlight like the straps, or the top of the straps here. And it is going to be sort of tough to see what I'm doing. Mostly just because we're using some very dark colors. Dance party, everybody! Oh, I gotta see this picture. What's this picture? Oh. Nice. That's definitely my kind of dance party right there. What do you guys think? I might do a little more extreme highlights. I didn't think I was going to. But these colors are just so dark that I think I can afford to do a little more. It's kind of out of focus. It's kind of like some like Darth Vader-esque stuff going on with like his chess piece and all that. I want to make sure I give myself 10 minutes at the end to give him like a little visor glare. Right now I'm just putting some of the original German gray on some of the flatter spaces, so it doesn't look so splotchy. You guys probably can't see the splotchiness, but I can. It's driving me nuts. Alright, let's see. Let's use some Dawnstone. We kind of skipped that color. So, as you've been able to see if you've been watching the whole time or most of the time, black is not an easy color to highlight. Using grays helps a ton. You almost can't do it without gray. Well, you definitely can't do it without gray. I mean, I guess you could do it with white, but that's just going to make gray. So, not necessarily the most exciting thing to watch. Because you're pretty much just using the same color endlessly. But hopefully it was somewhat educational for you guys, entertaining. At this point, I'm just putting gray in random spots because trying to show the difference between the different shadows of the black. So the last thing that we're going to do, because he's looking finished to me, and it is hard to see on the camera, but everything is a different shade of gray, but it all looks black. I guess we could highlight the helmet a little bit really quick. Yeah, that looks cool. So the last thing that we're gonna do is try and create a some reflection on his visor, just to give it a little something extra. You can use. I personally would use the brightest gray you've got. You could use white as well. The reason I'm not going to use white for this particular model is because then it would be kind of too obvious, because there's nothing else white here. But if I was painting like one of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and I wanted to do that, I would probably use white, because there's a lot of white on their uniforms. So there's a couple different ways that you can do this. There is really no wrong way. I'm just going to... Man, you can barely see that. You want to go light. You want to make sure you don't have a lot of paint on your paintbrush, but you don't want to go as light as I did. The 50 Shades of Grey Ranger. Pretty much. He's the Phantom Ranger, so... and that's it. You're just kind of creating like some lines to show reflection in the helmet. That actually might be too bright, honestly. The beauty of this is that you can do it as many times as you want, because you just shade over it with, or you just put the black back on it, and you also kind of want it, I kind of put like one on one side, one on the other. You kind of want it like both of your lines to be kind of closer together, because like if he's standing like this, my light is coming in and it's hitting him here. This is kind of where that reflection would be. There wouldn't necessarily be one on the other side. And I think we started with too bright of a gray. I'm going to go to the Eshin gray. Now you can't even see it. Look at me. Maybe the Dawnstone. So first I used Admin. That was too bright. Then I used Eshin. That was too dark. So Dawnstone is kind of the middle color here. There we go. Perfect. And that's really all you want. I'm calling him... Oh, we still have 7 minutes. What can I highlight in 7 minutes? I'm going to go crazy highlighting now. The straps might make things pop a little more. Again, this is the Dawnstone color that we're using now. You know what? That's a great question. As far as reflection goes, I'll give you a little tip on how you could make it reflective. Because we have 4 minutes. So GW, Games Workshop, they make a, I guess it's Citadel. They make a technical paint called Ard Coat, and it is a paint. It's not a varnish, and it is clear, and it is high gloss. So, like super gloss. You could use this on the entire helmet to make the helmet shiny, but because we haven't done that to the other armor, I don't want to do that. You can't see it on the paintbrush because it is clear. And you could just go right over the visor, especially now that we have that glare effect on there. So like I said, this is a clear paint. Is not a varnish, so don't use it as a varnish. But when it dries, it will dry just like you see it there. It almost gives it a wet appearance. And that's it. I've used this on Rangers helmets before, so you can do the entire helmet in that glossy color, and it makes the Ranger's helmet appear. And again, that's going to work good for like a Mighty Morphin Power Ranger, because if you remember in the show, like their helmets were kind of shiny. Not shiny, but glossy, right? Whereas the rest of their uniform was cloth. So for a Mighty Morphin Power Ranger, using the Ard Coat over the helmet will give the helmet the appearance of it being shiny or glossy. That'll take just a second to dry. You could do 2 coats if you want. Just depends on how glossy you want it to be. But it's almost like a clear nail polish. It just goes over top of it, and it makes that one thing that you want to be glossy. And now when I do varnish it, I always varnish with the same varnish. I'm a creature of habit. Once I find something I like, I don't use anything else. And what I use is Tester's Dull Coat. You can find it at any craft store in the model section where they sell plastic models, cars, and stuff like that with the Tester's paint. And I don't like high gloss stuff, so I don't use any other varnish except for Tester's Dull Coat. So it will dull this down a little bit, but it doesn't dull it down bad, if you will. And that's it. So this is the Phantom Ranger, all done. He's very nicely shaded. We got some really nice highlights on him. I'm glad we did that art coat on the visor because it looks super cool. He looks like a cross between like Daft Punk and like something that you see out of like No Man's Sky, like the video game or something like that. He looks really cool. And I'll paint the base probably black, give him a varnish, and he'll be all set. And as always, I am Daddy Louie from the Circle of Nerds. If you are unfamiliar with me or the stuff that we do, you can check us out over on YouTube at youtube.com/Circle of Nerds. Also all over Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, also at Circle of Nerds. And a huge shout out to Renegade for having me on stream. I love doing this. It means the world to me. And remember, guys, play your games. I'll see you next week.